And we are live. Welcome everyone for day 4 of our journey, day 4 of 14 of our It's a Vagina monologue seasons at She Stands Tall project. And we have been slowly building up the journey. And today we are into our 4th day, and we have another very powerful monologue waiting for you. And as just before that, I wanted to again give a shout out to all those who are watching, who are sending us words of support and encouragement, who are also sending reflections and stories to me. And it's very, very much appreciated, deeply moving. And we ourselves, all 15 of us, we keep sharing and we are supporting each other. We are with each other in this journey. And so, yeah, so it's been an intense journey for us as well to move through this. And this length and the long, duration also to hold this is also intense. And I just want to take a moment today just to reflect back. Yeah, this journey, we are building up, there's something happening here. We are getting to know, the vagina a little bit more every day. Yeah, we began with really seeing why vagina monologues, why do we hesitate saying vagina? And then we went from the external exploration of the hair around the vagina. That was our second monologue, the hair, yeah, the garden around the vagina, the forest, and the women's relationship with that. And then we went a little bit more. It's like almost entering the gates of a temple, the doors of a temple, walking in. We did the flood, yeah, which is the very essence, the water, yeah, water aspect of the vagina. And this is where I actually received quite a lot of sharing yesterday from women, and some of them were very moving, and some were quite intense. And I must say that it was somewhere almost shocking for me, because I didn't even know that kind of uh, misunderstanding existed. And so I want to name it and voice it, especially for the boys and men hearing that. It's the vaginal waters of a woman, is not particularly about men and boys that we like. Yeah, so it is about us. It's our juiciness. It's not just the Prince Charming that can bring up an wetness. It could be just anything that moves us, touches us. Even a very loud laughter can also, make us, arouse us. It's that part of a woman. It's her juiciness. Yeah. So these misunderstandings have to be kind of called out. And as we were just talking about it earlier, sorry, you're not the cause of it, my flood, it's me. Yeah, it's part of who I am, so take me with it. Yeah. And every woman's vaginal wetness is very different. Yes, today I was reading something, and I want to say these words that um, in medical terminologies, which make everything sound vaginal discharge, that word, it discharge. It's not a discharge. It's you don't call a juice oozing out of a mango as mango's discharge. You call it mango's deliciousness. It's deliciousness, or its juiciness. It's ripe, and that's exactly how it is. And the flood or the wetness is also the season. We don't question the rain when it comes as to, oh, why now? It shouldn't rain, and or like we can control it. Yeah. So I want to, we have to start really seeing the organic movement of vagina. And yesterday we met a 2-year-old woman who in her life for the first time actually met her vagina, had had the experience of an orgasm because she went to a vagina workshop. Yeah. And today you get to really meet a woman talking about her experience of being in a vagina workshop. And today we also introduce you to two stars of the vagina, and I'm not going to name it, and I'm going to see if you can spot it in the monologue. They're going to make their entry towards the end. Yeah. And I hope this monologue, today's monologue, inspires you to also get to know your vagina. Without further ado, let's begin tonight's monologue.
My vagina is a shell, a round, pink, tender shell, opening and closing, closing and opening. My vagina is a flower, an eccentric tulip. The center acute and deep, the scent delicate, the petals gentle but sturdy.
I didn't always know this. I learned this in the Vagina workshop. I learned this from a woman who runs a Vagina workshop, a woman who believes in vaginas. She really sees vaginas. She helps women see their own vaginas by seeing other women's vaginas.
In the first session, the woman who runs the Vagina workshop asked us to draw a picture of our own unique, beautiful, fabulous vagina. That's what she called it. She wanted to know what was our own unique, beautiful, fabulous vagina look like to us. One woman who was pregnant drew a big red mouth, screaming with coins spilling out. Another very skinny woman drew a big serving plate with kind of Devonshire pattern on it. I drew a huge black dot with little squiggly lines around it. The black dot was equal to a black hole in space, and the squiggly lines were meant to be people or things or just some basic atoms that got lost there.
I had always thought of my vagina as an anatomical vacuum, randomly sucking up particles and objects from the surrounding environment. I did not think of my vagina in practical or biological terms. I did not, for example, see it as something attached to me.
In the workshop, we were asked to look at our vaginas with hand mirrors. Then, after careful examination, we were to verbally report back to the group what we saw. I must tell you that up until this point, everything I knew about my vagina was based on hearsay or invention. I'd never really seen the thing. It had never occurred to me to look at it.
My vagina existed for me on some abstract plane. It seemed so reductive and awkward looking at it, like we were in this workshop on a shiny blue mat with our hand mirrors. It reminded me of how the early astronomers must have felt with their primitive telescopes.
I found it quite unsettling at first, my vagina. Like the first time you see a fish cut open and you discover this other bloody complex world inside, right under the skin. It was so raw, so red, so fresh. And the thing that surprised me the most was all the layers. Layers inside layers, opening into more layers.
What happened was, my vagina amazed me. I couldn't speak when it came my turn in the workshop. I was speechless. I had awakened to what the woman who ran the workshop called vaginal splendor. I just wanted to lay there on my mat, my legs spread, examining my beautiful vagina forever.
It was better than the Grand Canyon, ancient and full of grace. It had the innocence and the freshness of a proper English garden. It was funny, very funny. It made me laugh. It could hide and seek, open and close.
Then the woman who ran the workshop asked how many women in the workshop had had orgasms. 2 women tentatively raised their hands.
I didn't raise my hand, but I had had orgasms. I didn't raise my hand because they were accidental orgasms. They happened to me. They happened in my dreams, and I would wake in splendor. They happened a lot in water, mostly in the bath, once in Cape Cod.
They happened on horses, on bicycles, sometimes on the treadmill at the gym. I did not raise my hand because although I had had orgasms, I did not know how to make one happen. I thought it was all mystical, magical thing. I didn't want to interfere. It felt wrong, getting involved, contrived and manipulative. It felt vulnerable. The surprise would be gone and the mystery. The problem, of course, is that the surprise had gone for 2 years now. I hadn't had a magical accidental orgasm in a long time, and I was frantic. That's why I was in the vaginal workshop.
And then the moment had arrived that I both dreaded and longed for. The woman who ran the workshop asked us to take out our hand mirrors again and to see if we could locate our clitoris. We were there, the group of us women, on our backs, on our mats. We're searching for our spots, our locus, our reason. And I don't know why, but I started crying. Maybe it was the sheer embarrassment. Maybe it was knowing that I had to give up the fantasy, the enormous life-consuming fantasy that someone or something was going to do this for me. The fantasy that someone was coming to lead my life, to choose direction, to give me orgasms.
I could feel the panic coming, the simultaneous terror and realization that I had avoided finding my clitoris. I had rationalized it as mainstream and consumerist because I was, in fact, terrified that I did not have a clitoris, terrified that I was one of those constitutionally incapables, one of those frigid, dead, shut down, dry, apricot tasting, bitter. Oh my God.
I lay there with my mirror looking for my spot, reaching with my fingers, and all I could think was the time when I was 10 and lost my gold ring with the emeralds in a lake. How I kept diving over and over to the bottom of the lake, running my hands over stones and fish and bottle caps and slimy stuff, but never found my ring. The panic I felt, I knew I'd be punished.
The woman who ran the workshop, she saw my insane scrambling, my sweating, heavy breathing. She came over. I told her it's gone. It's gone. I've lost my clitoris. I shouldn't have worn it swimming. The woman who ran the workshop, she laughed. She came and she stroked my forehead. She told me my clitoris was not something I could lose. It was me. She said the essence of me. It was both the doorbell to my house and the house itself. I don't have to find it. I have to be it.
Be it. Be my clitoris. Be my clitoris. I lay back and close my eyes. I put the mirror down. I watch myself floating above myself. I watched as I slowly began to approach myself and re-enter. I felt like an astronaut re-entering the surface of the earth. It was very quiet, this re-entry. Quiet entry. I bounced and landed and bounced. I came into my own muscles and blood and cells, and then I slid into my vagina.
It was suddenly easy and I fit. I was all warm and pulsing and ready and young and alive. And then, without looking, my eyes still closed, I put my finger on what had suddenly become me. There was a little quivering at first, which urged me to stay. Then the quivering became a quake, an eruption, the layers dividing as a dividing. The quaking broke into an ancient horizon of light and silence, which opened onto a plane of music and colors and innocence and longing. And I felt connection. I calling connection as I lay there, thrashing about on my little pillow.
My vagina is a shell. She's a tulip, a destiny. I am arriving as I am beginning to leave. My vagina, me.
Just take a moment and give our sisters a moment as well to breathe. And let me welcome them back. I want to begin with Mudita, a free-spirited being. And she's constantly breaking the cages of good, bad, right, wrong. Welcome, Mudita. And I welcome Sari. Sari is a mystically oriented seeker and educator. And Martina. Martina is a woman who is embodied, knows her vulva, and is connected to her body and the earth. Welcome, sisters. That was. How was that? How was that for you guys?
It's like going to a space for the first time. For the first time.
Yeah.
I felt like towards the end I was starting to ride the orgasm as well. Like, yeah, like, oh, sorry, you did a great job in creating that intensity, and yeah, so yeah, I felt it, and like afterwards when we like shut down the video, I just felt like good, like yeah, so thank you. Yeah.
I felt being transported to that space. It felt like we are in a physical space and this is really happening here. So just felt alive.
Yeah, it was very, very powerful. Like I literally felt in my body, like, I wanted to like get out of my chair. Like it was very powerful to just, and also at the same time, very vulnerable. To feel vulnerable. So I noticed myself, I was like little worried also, like, I hope you're all fine, like, because it is intense and we are doing it here, so I just want to also um, to name the courage and yeah, for us being here and doing this, and for the woman who shared the story. What a Vagina workshop. And yeah, we have a sister who has joined us, Yannick. So I'm going to, Yannick, do you want to uh, come? Yannick is joining us. And Yannick is an incarnated soul in a woman's body, navigating this lifetime in search of growth. Welcome, Yannick. And I mean, you were here yesterday, right? So it's like an immediate next day, right? Yeah. And so I want to just maybe first hear from those who did the monologue, and then Yannick, you could also share is how do you connect with this piece? How did this piece, what did this open up for you, this piece, when you first read it, or even the um, aspects of it, especially orgasm and clitoris. This is the where we are naming these two words, and they kind of also deepened as we go ahead. But and your own relationship, um, and maybe I can just start. Since I'm asking, I'll just be vulnerable myself as well, and I didn't know this word clitoris. I think till I don't even know if it was it till I did the vagina monologues, but I knew that there was something in me, which was a little scary for me. Like it was like 1,000-watt energy, and it's almost, sometimes it felt to me like stretching a high watt wire. Some of my experience, I felt like that, like that, and in a good way. But I remember that some moments I was a little like, what is that? And I remember this was the time the Friends was there, the G string, all these. I remember there was over they draw, and it was that time, and this was before I did vagina monologues, and it's after vagina monologues that I uh, really looked at the image and looked at how clitoris looks like. And it was very fascinating to me that how come I never knew this? How come even in my biology class, nobody told me clitoris? I know fallopian tubes and ovaries and, all the penis, testes, vagina. I know all these, but clitoris, I was not told about clitoris. So, it was, I think that was, yeah, that was very powerful. And, and to know that, uh, I don't have to wait for man. Because I remember once one of my sisters from my cohort had asked me this question, do you give pleasure to yourself? And at that time, I remember that I took it very personally. I felt kind of inside me, I felt, how dare somebody ask me that question? I don't know what it was. I don't know where that, I was angry at her for asking me that, or it was wrong as something. And, if I see where I am today, I just see that there is, that was such a cultural thing to be it was such it almost felt like I would lose my belonging to even answer that question, or in my system or something. Now I have that. I didn't have that awareness then, but it hit me like that at that time. And it's not that I was giving that to me, but to be asked and to even to voice it felt like I was cheating. I was cheating my culture. I was cheating something. I was cheating. And it was such a bizarre feeling. And then I did a lot of exploration. Where did this come from for me? And yeah, so this piece is for me, it's like atom bomb, like a bomb. It's quite yeah,
A necessary awakening.
necessary.
Because if I think about it, when I was a teenager in school, I didn't know about the clitoris either. Like, I don't even know when I started to know about the clitoris, but I'd say very late in my life. And I've been thinking about like talking to my nieces who are 13 and 15, as they start to sexually awaken, like, should I tell them about this? Because otherwise they're going to wait 10 years or something. But yeah, I remember when I first read this piece, I think it was in the introduction, I was quite shook that it was so late in her life. And I was like, no, because I'd just awoken myself. And I literally read this book like last year. But I was like, no, that's too late for a woman. Because once I discovered like my own pleasure and stuff, there's no going back. Like it's immense. It's that horizon that like Sari spoke about. Like that there's going to be, and there are millions of women who might go a whole lifetime and not get to experience this, not have that deep the deep beauty of your orgasm being your own. Yeah. And I had and I actually want to share it here, because when it happened to me, I wanted to share it with so many people. But after I came out from a very long relationship, after we broke up, the first time I self-pleasured and orgasmed by myself, I cried, because it felt like, even though hadn't been, it felt like the first time I'd truly taken ownership of pleasuring myself. I'd been so accustomed to my partner pleasuring me, that it was just this, there was like this grief of what was, and then this like opening of like, okay, well, now what is this like? Yeah, so it's like not that evident in this piece, but I think you mentioned it in the introduction, that waiting for the Prince Charming, and like she said,
Yeah, she says that.
give up that life-consuming fantasy that someone or something was going to do this for me. Someone was coming to lead my life. Like, boom, drop the mic. Yeah, so that leaves me feeling like deeply empowered, deeply grateful to be in a place that I've journeyed to know this, and just hoping that there's women out there listening to this who hear this woman's story, that she waited so long, like, to even look at her vagina. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you said, Martina, is so true, and school was the worst place to learn anything. I mean, can you imagine 30 to 50 giggling teenagers listening to an anatomical lecture, and everyone's, who's going to speak about this there? Or even you can't experience it, you just feel embarrassed.
Right.
So I think for me, it's been a long journey from embarrassment to actually knowing myself. And I still have to say that I don't 100% know myself because I don't know what that looks like. But somewhere on the line, I think this piece captures the embarrassment of it very well, and the fumbling that, what am I? So because I was thinking, sitting here and thinking that who sees the clitoris? I don't see it because you need the mirror. So who is it? It's either your mother or your partner or your gynecologist. So it's like everyone else sees your vagina and your clitoris and your vulva except you. So you need that mirror.
Yeah.
But we don't have, I think we started with this, we need a community of women.
Yeah.
You need a community of women to do this, because on your own, you're still left with your own kind of structures and fears and apprehensions and embarrassments.
Yeah.
And I was reminded of the, Laura Dodsworth's campaign where she did photograph people's, women's vulvas, not people's, because only women have vulvas. But the idea that we are all different.
Yeah.
And some of us have been undergoing very painful cuttings, and you're still beautiful. I think there's a lot of I wish there were more mysticism around, wonder about clitoris and vulvas and vaginas, and not this heavy condemnation and saying that you're dirty and it doesn't belong to women to make themselves feel good. I don't want to be relying only on accidental orgasms.
Thank you so much.
I feel like when I read this piece for the first time, it felt like my story. It just felt so connected to it. And so something very similar happened in my life, where I think till a few years ago, I accidentally happened to attend a workshop, which was actually a women's circle. That was the first women's circle that I was attending in my life. And I went there, okay, we're just going to be like singing, dancing, and sharing, and all of that. And by day 4, I think, in that circle, they had this whole day dedicated only to the vagina and making rituals around it and all of that. And that day I was like, I don't think I want to attend this day. This doesn't make sense. And why are you doing this in a women's circle? Like, I was not told about this. So I felt very offended that why was I not informed that I have to participate in something like this? And to my luck, they started that day with having this like a model of what a woman's vagina looks like, and ovaries and the clitoris, and they literally passed that model around for all of us to touch, feel, and really get the sense of that, okay, that's all that sits there. And if that hadn't happened, I'm sure I would have been the woman in that workshop screaming and yelling, saying that I've lost my clitoris. I don't think that part exists in me, because till that day, I didn't know that's what it's called. Yeah. Like you shared, Drake, I could feel the presence of it, the charge, the energy, and all of that, but I didn't know it was called the clitoris. And about the 8,000 nerves and all that went behind it. And I actually have zero memory of any of this being spelled out in school. All that I remember is probably having this one Ford namesake session in school, because it had to be a part of the curriculum. And all we girls just giggling, saying that, do you know what they're going to do today? And all of that. And then we just giggled the whole session, didn't even listen to a single word. And that's how the whole growing up years went, not even knowing what all exists down there. So I completely connect to this piece. And I just felt that this was my story.
Thank you so much, Melita, for sharing that. Sharing that with us.
From an outsider's point of view, from the point of view of someone who discovered the piece while hearing it, I think it's a beautiful piece because I can feel the movement from yesterday's piece to today's piece. So yesterday we were talking, we read about that woman who got totally disconnected with her own body after a traumatic experience, and there was a lot of sadness, lots of holding space. And today there's a movement towards a woman meeting herself. And I think this is so powerful. And I think the three of you, thank you very much. The three of you have done a great job getting that intensity, vulnerability, but also beauty, because I think it's so beautiful, that path of that woman meeting herself. And when you were sharing, Martina, about pleasuring yourself while you were had no partner, that took me back to some experience I had as well personally. And yes, while you were sharing that, I could feel something in there, you know, and exactly the same feeling that I've had when listening about that woman. It's meeting myself, a woman, and I think there's so much strength when a woman goes to meet herself because she knows herself. And as you said, Rika, as well, she knows that she doesn't need someone. She is enough to herself. And as well, about the workshop thing, I'd like to share also. When I first read the title of this piece, I felt, oh, weird, vagina workshop, what is that? And then some memory came back to me. I think I must have been around end of primary school, so around 12. And one day we were watching TV with my family. And I remember there was an uncle as well who was at home. And at some point, I think there was a show on some Nordic country, maybe Finland or Sweden, I don't know. And there was that documentary, let's say, on workshop for women. And I remember seeing a bunch of ladies laying down and touching themselves. And the family around me was shocked. My uncle was very interested to watch. My mom was like, oh, what's that? Remove that. And I was like, okay, what's happening there, you know? And as well, I remember it coincided as well as, you know, at that time, you start feeling as a growing girl, you start feeling things down there, squeezing your legs sometimes. So I thought to myself, so there's something about down there, you know, there's something to discover. And then, yes, the word clitoris as well. I remember checking that word in the dictionary. Maybe I was around 17, but didn't know exactly what it was. I knew I had one, but yeah, discovered about it quite late, really. So yeah, a woman meeting herself. That's what I receive from this piece.
Just, yeah, a woman meeting herself. That's, yeah, it's, yeah, I'm speechless. Something that I remembered when Sari spoke was I remembered this book because my master's research was a study on female sexuality. I had met this friend from Chennai, guy, who gave me this book on Yoni Tantra. It's Bihar School of Yoga publication, he said, and that there is this whole thing, there's this whole written about how the I mean, they don't exactly call it clitoris, but for women, they say for women, the Muladhara chakra can be touched in a woman, and the Kundalini can be awakened. For a woman, it's very easy because so the clitoris and the Muladhara are very close. The chakra, right? The base chakra is, and the clitoris are very much in proximity, and the sacral, the chakras are very, so the clitoris is at that point where, she can really awaken herself. For her, it's kind of very easy. That's how that said that, and it was like, I was like, nobody talks about these things, and I think over the years I've also have perspective around it. Imagine women who know themselves. I mean, imagine the world where women know themselves, and they can take care, because your emotion, when you're emotional and physical, all these needs, the vagina can really, it allows you to really take care and nourish and release and transform. The amount of pain that we hold in our bodies, I feel, because there's no room for it, I feel these are built into us because we are also the emotional container of this universe. So we have also been given these very amazing tools that can help us also release and relax the body, and so that we can again find back the softness and the freshness of who we are. But then we are told that our hands cannot touch there. That's danger. So, imagine a world where women know to give themselves orgasms. Women know how to happy. Women are, it's not just vaginas are happy women, women are happy. How threatening is that for today's world, the patriarchal world, which everything is around power of even birth, and even like how, I think, I don't know, Sari or Mudita, one of you said that about like who looks at the vagina are doctors and gynecologists. We don't see it. Imagine that the power that's taken away, that we don't even know the amount of power is when women start claiming themselves, being themselves, whether you give yourself pleasure or not is immaterial, but to know that it's yours, and you can guide someone, you can even teach a man or your boyfriend or your partner how to give you pleasure. It's not his responsibility. They have no clue what this is. Yeah. So I feel like I wonder how it is for women to listen to this, those who watch this, because we don't hear this in conversation like this,
Reka, I wanted to add, I was thinking about it over the past day or two before we did this one.
Yeah.
About looking at your own vagina with the hand mirror. And I was remembering a significant time that I looked at it. And I think it was actually encouraged when we did the Shakti Ship journey.
Yeah.
And I felt this message that it's important to say that when you look at your vagina, at your vulva, it's really important the lens at which you're looking at her through.
Yeah.
Because you can come with so many different possible lenses. But I remember when I came to look at her through the lens of doing this women's work journey, it was such a soft lens. So that when I looked at my vagina, I had a profound experience. And I think it's because the lens prepared me. It set a tone for what was about to happen. So yeah, I want to share that for any woman who hasn't yet looked at her vagina or hasn't in a long time, like to just to consider your approach before you do. And the other thing, I actually looked today, and I looked after having a bath, and I think your vagina's more juicy when she hasn't bathed or showered. I know that's like, it sounds quite, yeah, it's just something I noticed because of the first time I looked and it was so special. I remember sharing with a friend who had also looked, and I was like, she was so glossy. I used the word glossy, and I think I said pink, and like the words I used were so loving and so beautiful. And then my friend had her own experience, but also her words were so so gorgeous of what we experience. Like, so yeah, I think the lens is so important. I just wanted to like add that in there. Um, yeah, to approach her with compassion. Yeah.
And I think it's the same lens that we look at ourselves. It's not any different. We are so hard on ourselves when we look at ourselves, how we look at ourselves as fat or thin or as what our own ideas of beauty. I think I think it is, it goes all the way to that as well. I feel the world of how we look and how, what is beauty, you know? And I think it's the same thing. And vagina is a very different approach of beauty, and every woman's is so different, you know. Mine may not be, mine is not that pink. So it's no, every woman's vagina's color is different. It looks completely different, you know. So I think, yeah, it's like there is this. Uh, there is a, in the reading there is something, right, Sari, you read it, it's like a, when you cut open a fish, it's like flesh layers, you know. It's this yeah, or oyster. I mean, in the, I think on the first day I had all these pictures of these different images, right? And some, and in our real life I feel many times these things are seen as, ew, they're slushy, or they're, ew, not, you know, we it's, that's how it's kind of take it out, clean it up, you know. Even whether it's things, if it's something splashes, the way we treat it is so different, you know. And when you look down there, it's kind of sometimes it's very powerful. And what I remembered was, in my program, my teachers like Vicky Noble and all of them, they used to share that in their feminist movement, you know, when they, during the third wave spiritual feminism movement, they would just, that's what they did, because they would, all these women, because they realized that nobody had ever, you know, they didn't want to go to the gynecologist, they want to birth each other, they want to be there, it's, they would just investigate each other's vaginas. So they would do this, you know, in the commune and the community that they stayed, they would do this. And they really, because they felt that they can no longer rely on the gynecologist, like even menstruation, how much blood, when does it come, how does, so they started really doing this a discovery of examining each other and sharing it, taking notes, and you know. So it's when I first heard that, I was like, wow, it was such a, I don't know, was it shock, or it was like a wow, can we do that, you know? That was when I first, when they were sharing about it. But that's, I think that's so important for women to find that safety, to be able to do this. And I feel maybe in the old culture, kind of, there were women where they were like, I know in my matriarchal system, there was a whole, the house was women's house. Boys were there till they were teens, and then they moved to the men's quarters. Otherwise, it was all women's, and men would not even venture because they wouldn't know what they would see. So they would always be so afraid to go to the women's side. And so women bathed naked. They would be, you know, in the pond in the house. So they all saw each other's bodies, and so it was such a different time.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is the idea of, I come back to the idea of community. And perhaps we need to find new ways of building that community. The old ways have gone, they belong to some other time. But the idea that I'm naturally me, I don't have to be Reka or Mudita or Yannick or Martina. I'm me, I'm Sari. And my vagina is part of me. And like this text says, I was sort of surprised that it's attached to me. It's not, my vagina is not something that I put on my table when I go to sleep and then put it on in the morning when I go. it's not, yeah, it's really part of me. And I think the learning is to start living with the whole of your body, including your vagina, and listening to it. Because there is a lot of kind of a, people are wondering about the origins of creativity. So it is linked to how my juices flow. It's literally that. And if they don't flow, I won't create. There's nothing to create. It's a river that is dry. So we need those rivers, and it's interesting that many rivers are feminine.
Yeah, and that many rivers are going away as well.
Yes, like Saraswati.
Yeah.
Mm. So there's a lot to discover, and depending on what you're interested, and also that the idea that it's really my body. I can't. I don't know how many times I need to say this, that this is my body. Nobody else has access to it unless I give them permission with mutual consent. It's my body. And whatever I do with it, it's my, or choose to do with it, it's my responsibility and my right.
And I think for us to just say that, I guess, it's my body. Yeah, it's my body. Just to, just say it, maybe even unmute. And I think I like that, just to say that it's my body.
My body.
My body.
It's my body.
My body.
It's mine. It's mine.
Body.
While you were talking, that's something that came up for me that I want to share. When you spoke about this community where people would see each other naked and see and examine each other's vaginas and measure the menstruation, that reminded me again of that workshop that I was talking about that I attended. So by the end of that day 4, it was, of course, when I was a part of it, it just felt like, what the hell have I signed up for? But it's only later that I realized that that day changed my connection, or, it changed who I was as a person, as a woman in my own body. Because at the end of that day, they beautifully created this whole ritual. The room was full of flowers, and like how in India you do an arti, right? It's like you kind of really bowing down to the goddess, and kind of like, yeah. So they literally created that whole ritual, and they paired us up, and they said the next exercise is going to be about a partner really lying down and the other partner doing this arti first for the vagina of the other. And you put some flowers, you put a intention or a prayer, and it was literally like you're at the gate, at the doorway of a temple.
Yeah.
And before you kind of taking permission from the goddess, that do I have the permission to even step in? So it was that beautiful ritual, and just to even see it for the first time on someone else's body was like, oh my god, that's such a beautiful part. And how come all this while I just saw it as something that I only bleed from, all of that. And that day I think it changed the way I felt like a woman in my own body. And I feel this is so not available to so many other women. Yeah. I don't know if this community work is required. Is this really what needs to be brought out more for the younger women too?
And I feel safety.
Yeah.
For women to feel safe, is so important, I think. Um, Even in this exploration, in your own time is okay. You know it is there, you're here, and I feel everything is also interconnected. Everything has its time. Everything has why, when happens, how it, it's like there is, I have in my life, I know with the systemic work and all that, learning to find more and more agreement in the way things happen and way things have happened. What can happen, I can choose, but what has happened, uh, so I think each one of us who are here, we can create that safety. If another woman wishes to go there, she knows that I'm here. You can talk to me about it. I'm here at your time. It does it, and you fine if you don't. It's fine. I think it's also a decision that a woman needs to make on her own also. Sometimes I feel, I just want to name this, everyone is making such leaps. It is you have your system, you have your family, cultural, country system. So it's the belonging. There's so many, this, it's not just this one tiny looking down. The leap, depending on where you come from, is very, imagine a woman from Afghanistan, from there, to do this. She might have to know that I might die if I'm caught, or if someone knows I might be killed. So the risk that a woman does, so I feel it has to be her choice, it has to be her time, but she knows that it's there. She needs to feel safe. And I want to voice that for all women listening, that we are here. And there are many communities, like Mudita mentioned, the community we are here. And even this year, actually, the Shaktaship journey has pictures. The workbook is much more direct. Otherwise I was saying it, but it was not the book. So it's right there. So, and yeah, I think we are just that we are doing this here and we are talking about this. I think it's something. So I feel like we are taking those steps, and may we all be supported and guided to be that community for a woman, that she feels safe to come, ask or share. Yeah, and thank you guys. Thank you, sisters. Yeah, I mean, what an honor and what a privilege to, I feel, yeah, that our paths have crossed and we are here talking and holding space for this. It's yeah, yeah, it's very moving. So yeah, holding space. Yeah. Take good care, and you just hang on for a minute. I'm going to yeah,